Hello and welcome to this edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Michelle Marino.
And I'm Paul Werlin.
In tonight's newscast, we discuss the Boston Marathon and what running this year means to a few local runners. We bring you highlights from a forum on homelessness, and we speak to a citizen journalist from Syria about the dangers of reporting and the personal price he has paid.
Those stories and more, plus our community calendar, coming up next.
Patriots Day is a state holiday that celebrates the first battles of the American Revolutionary War, including the battles of Lexington and Concord and the British retreat through Arlington, called Monotony at the time. In Arlington, the Patriots Day Parade will be held on Monday, April 21st, marching down Mass Ave from Brattle Street to Bates Road in East Arlington. The celebration starts at 7 a.m. with the Monotony Minutemen raising the flag at Town Hall. The parade will begin at 9:30 a.m., and the festivities will end with the Lancers' reenactment of Paul Revere and William Dawes' historic ride, with a stop by Arlington Town Hall around 11:45 a.m. Event details can be found online at arlingtonma.gov/veterans.
The Arlington Sister City Association connects Arlington to the world. 2014 marks the 30th anniversary of the Sisterhood of Arlington and Nagayo Kakyo in Japan. Students and Nagayo Kakyo citizens will help us celebrate that anniversary in Arlington. Beginning on April 25th, this year's exchange students arrive and will attend school, as well as enjoying cultural and educational activities with local families. There will be Red Sox games, a visit to the State House, plus a concert and the annual Cherry Blossom Fest at Ottoson Middle School on May 2nd. ACMi will be there to report on the celebrations.
We would like to congratulate youth news producer Gayatri Sundarajan for participating in the Massachusetts History Day competition and winning 2 awards for her entry. Gayatri won the National Archives Award in her category for the best use of primary sources and the Marilyn Ross Memorial Book Award for the best women's project entry in the entire state, including both junior and senior divisions. Congratulations, Gayatri.
We want to remind everyone that the next Household Hazardous Waste collection will be on Saturday, April 19th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Collection will take place at 60 Hartwell Avenue in Lexington. Please go to arlingtonma.gov/recycle for a full list of the hazardous waste materials that will be collected. No pre-registration is required.
Homelessness means not having a home. Although we normally associate homelessness with sleeping in doorways or on the street, homelessness can also be hidden. For instance, if you're sleeping on someone's sofa or in a spare room. Next up, we bring you highlights from a recent forum on this important subject.
This is Aaron Walk from Arlington Public News here at Arlington Senior Center to cover a forum on homelessness. Homelessness was center stage on March 30th at Arlington Senior Center, where advocates and citizens discussed the housing challenges faced by Massachusetts families. Keynote speaker, State Representative Byron Rushing linked the recent rise in homelessness to the lack of affordable housing. Now, what makes you such a strong advocate for alleviating homelessness?
I came to this really out of my public policy concern about poverty. When you want to deal with the whole issue of poverty, it's very important that poor people who generally are under a lot of stress have some stability in their lives. And one of the ways that we can get people stability in their lives is to have them have decent housing.
Homelessness has increased nationwide since the economic crisis in 2008. However, Massachusetts has been hit especially hard.
A lot of folks are actually not aware that we have a family homelessness crisis on our hands. So at Homes for Families, we work hand in hand with families who are experiencing homelessness to address policy changes that are necessary to really get at the root of homelessness. And essentially, that's affordable housing.
According to the 2013 Annual Homelessness Assessment Report to Congress, Massachusetts has seen the second largest increase in individual and family homelessness in the country since 2007. What would you like to see the state of Massachusetts do to help alleviate homelessness?
That's a tough question. There's a lot. I mean, I think fundamentally, and I do work in the housing field, we need a lot more housing, especially in eastern Massachusetts, and honestly at all levels of prices, from market rate all the way down to affordable housing for formerly homeless people. We're just literally hundreds of thousands of units short of what we need.
Massachusetts is in year 6 of a 5-year plan to decrease homelessness. Due to the 2008 economic crisis, efforts have come up short, but advocates are preparing for the next step.
A significant decrease in homelessness in 5 years did not happen. Okay. And one of the things that we're doing right now is trying to figure out what do we do and what can we do going into the future now that the economy has leveled off. So how can we use this time to get back on track?
Advocate, be involved, speak to your representative, call your representative and tell them that I care about this issue and I want to make sure that you care about this issue too.
If you would like to help fight homelessness in your community, contact the Housing Corporation of Arlington to participate in the 13th Annual Walk for Affordable Housing on Sunday, April 13th. From Arlington Public News, this is Aaron Walk. Back to the studio.
The Boston Marathon is the world's oldest annual marathon. It began in 1897, and until it was marred by last year's bombing, it had been a joyful event celebrating amateur and professional runners from around the world. In our next segment, we bring you the personal story of one marathon runner.
In preparation for the Boston Marathon, we spoke with local runner Kristen Weiner about her reasons for running.
This year I'm running because I'm from Boston, and after last year's events, it's really important to me that we kind of take back the city and make sure that we're all in this together. I'm also running because my mother has multiple sclerosis. I am running as part of that charity to raise money and awareness to fund multiple sclerosis research. The basis of MS is the muscular weakness. And so I've never been able to run with my mom, bike with my mom, really do anything. So I decided to run for her, kind of to do it with her, so that this would finally be a time in my life where I felt like my mom and I were running together. And if she wasn't physically there running with me and motivating me, she was kind of in my head saying, I can't do this, please do this for me.
Kristen also described the challenges of training and the excitement leading up to Marathon Monday.
I was studying abroad in Rome, Italy. One of the girls that I was on my program with ran the marathon, and she's like, yeah, everyone can do it, you just have to train. And I was like, I can't do it. I've only run for 15 minutes at a time, I can't do it. And she said, yes, you can. So I said, okay, well, I have all the fuel here, and I'm in a beautiful location. And so I just started running to challenge myself. My favorite route included the Coliseum and the Pantheon, and it was just an incredibly reaffirming, decision. Sometimes after the kind of adrenaline of, I'm going to do the marathon, after that subsides, and you're just running, and it's a very difficult process. You have to consistently remind yourself why you're doing it and that you can do it. It's difficult, but it's been so worth it, and I can't wait to kind of go to Marathon Monday and just do it, and this over 6 months of training make it worth it.
This is Lauren Alejandro with Arlington Public News.
Comfort Food is a series that explores the people and places of Arlington. In the latest segment, Arlington resident Ray Charbonneau discusses his recent book, The 27th Mile, which raises money for the One Fund, and gives a personal account of what it was like to guide a blind runner in last year's Boston Marathon.
My name is Anne Marie Seltzer, and welcome to Comfort Food. Today's segment is all about running.
Why did you decide to edit a book on running to raise money to help the One Fund?
Well, one of the things that I do for a living is help other people publish their books, and I've published a few of my own. And so I have the skill set to get something like that out. It was something that I could do to help raise money. Then when I stopped to think of it and I started to talk to some of the people that I've met over the years and written for or just become friends with, it turns out that I know enough people that actually write and run or run and write to put together a book, and it turned out to be a pretty good book, I think.
You have some very well-known runners who have contributed, such as Catherine Switzer.
Catherine contributed actually a piece about last year's marathon. We've also got work by other people that are well-known in the running community, like Amby Burfoot, who actually won the race in 1968 and was a longtime editor for Runner's World. Mark Remy, who's another editor for Runner's World. There's Joe Henderson, who was yet another editor for Runner's World at one time. Jeff Galloway, who has written one of the most popular books on running, and actually a book that was one of the first that I bought when I started running.
Last year you guided a blind runner. How did that come about?
Well, the Massachusetts Association for the Blind organizes the visually impaired division for the Boston Marathon. In February of 2013, Mike from Texas qualified to run Boston, and he needed a guide, and MAB hooked me up with him. Up until the bombs went off, it was probably one of the most rewarding marathons that I've had, because generally when you're running a marathon, you're, even with thousands of other people around, you're thinking about yourself, and if you're trying, especially if you're trying to race and run as fast as you can, your mind is on how much it hurts towards the end of the race. But this, I was busy thinking about Mike the whole time, you know, trying to make sure he doesn't run into anybody, trip over the railroad tracks, anything like that.
Sure.
And that's plenty to keep you distracted from exactly how much it hurts to run 26 miles. And then as we talked about earlier, this is the 27th mile, which is a collection of articles, stories, poetry, all sorts of things related to running. There's some about the race last year, like there's a fairly detailed story of me running as a guide with Mike, but there's a lot of other stuff that's not related necessarily to the Boston Marathon, but it's about being a runner and what it feels like to be a runner and why everybody will be out there in Hopkinton again on Patriots Day.
Ray, good luck in this year's Boston Marathon, and thank you for what you're doing for the One Fund.
All right, thanks. It's been fun.
This is Anne-Marie Seltzer for Arlington Public News. Please join me next time for another serving of comfort food.
You know, Michelle, we're going to have Kristen Weiner back here to talk to her again after the marathon, so we encourage our viewers to tune back in for that as well.
That would be great, and we wish everyone participating in the marathon this year the best of luck. Run safe, run hard, and run for Boston.
What does it mean to be a citizen journalist in Syria? What price would you be willing to pay to report the news? Next, we discover one man's answers to those questions.
A survivor of siege, starvation, and chemical weapons, Kusai Zakaria began his North American tour at Tufts University on April 2nd, advocating peace, democracy, and moderation despite over 3 years of war.
I was exposed in the chemical attack attempted by the Assad regime. My heart stopped for 3 minutes. After I was exposed with sarin gas, I was placed with the deceased for almost 45 minutes until one of my friends noticed that I'm with the dead bodies, and he was looking after me and started crying over me until he noticed that I'm alive, and it was a miracle for me to come back alive.
Kusai survived and escaped, but the atrocities continue.
Well, I'm here to participate in events of raising awareness to the American public about what's really going on in Syria, because I was exposed in 21/8 chemical attack by the Assad regime on rebels in Syria. I also participated in a hunger strike for 33 days to raise awareness against the Assad starvation weapon after dozens of people died from malnutrition in Syria.
The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reports that more than 150,000 people have been killed in Syria, including around 50,000 civilians and 8,000 children since conflict began in March of 2011.
We feel that we should have more support from the American public about what's happening in Syria, because hundreds of thousands of Syrians got killed by the Assad regime. Our only guilt and fault is to ask for freedom and dignity and Syria for all.
Syria remains divided, but there is hope for a better future. Now, what do you hope for the future of Syria?
We hope that all the sacrifices that we made to build a new Syria and to build a democracy and a moderate country will come to an end, and we will have what we dreamed for, what we dreamed about, and we asked for is to have a liberated and free Syria for all. And I believe the American public really needs to know about what's really going on in Syria, because the American government is trying their very best to keep them away about what's happening on the ground, so they won't be forced to have more actions taken in Syria. And we're here trying and hoping we can change that.
From Arlington Public News at Tufts University, this is Aaron Walk.
Well, Paul, there are some truly brave individuals, just as you saw in that last segment, trying to bring awareness of what's happening in Syria, and we applaud their efforts.
It's truly amazing. I mean, journalists are being killed over there every day, so to bring us a story directly from Syria, from somebody in the country, is truly amazing.
Our Career Exploration series highlights many industries and professions. This week, APN visited Involution Studios, a software and illustrative design studio right here in Arlington. We spoke with several employees, including a designer illustrator and a studio manager.
I'm Joel Rothstein, Arlington Public News. We're at GoInvo Studios to figure out what goes on. Come on in, we'll meet the owner. What is your role here in the company?
Well, I'm an owner of the company, a co-owner, and I am the creative director here. So most of the actual work doesn't revolve around me. It revolves around the fantastic staff here, the other designers and engineers who work here. So I just happen to corral a little bit if it needs it, and help projects sort of go from the primordial ooze stage to launch stage.
The fantastic staff describe their roles in this process. Let's start with designer-illustrator Sarah.
Well, I do a little bit of a lot. Some days I'm working on software. Other days I'm illustrating for the posters you'll see around the room here. Others I'm working on 3D. Others I'm working with the printer downstairs, the wide format. We'll work with clients from start to finish. We'll come in, hear what they want to work on, sort of assess their needs, go through the process of figuring out what exactly it is that they do, and start to design that experience from birth to death.
Studio manager Emily Twaddell keeps the studio running smoothly by bookkeeping, organizing, and editing stories. She shared with us her favorite aspects of her job.
What I like doing best here is making things, which is why I wore our Design Axiom shirt today. One of the parts of my job is to support a kind of artisanal look and feel to the studio. While everyone here works with digital tools, everyone is also an artist in the more traditional sense. So I like to make things to have around the studio. The thing I love best is just really being here to make this a good work environment.
We've seen highlights of the management, the creative, and the administrative sides of the studio. Now, John Follett describes the sales aspect of the business.
If folks are interested in contracting with us and having our designers and engineers, work with their company, be it a small startup or, a Fortune 500, I'm the person they work with most directly. On the marketing side of things, I do a lot of talking at various conferences, tech meetups, and then I also do a lot of writings.
What do you like best about your job?
Well, that's a good question. I think I work with some really tremendous people. I enjoy working with smart people and learning new things.
To succeed in design, one needs the ability and the desire to learn. Every position focused on the need for curiosity.
Yuan really encourages us to pick up something that we're interested in and learn. He keeps a really big library.
We're always identifying new technologies to work with, which essentially means you're always learning something new, and you have to get up to speed quickly on things.
Part of what we like to infuse here is also the sense that you're trying some new things, or that your brain is being twisted in such a way that you haven't thought that way before. And what happens during those crunch times of 80% is all the learning. right? You're grinding through this equation, or you're trying to figure out how to code something. But then all of a sudden there's this like moment of, aha.
This is Joel Rothstein, Arlington Public News.
Some call Chuck Cramer a modern-day Renaissance man. For more than 2 decades, he worked for local news stations and produced his own segments for Greater Boston on WGBH. He is also an artist and a cabinet maker. We recently caught up with Chuck to hear about what he is working on now. Printmaking has come a long way since we all captured Kodak moments using cameras and film. Chuck Cramer is a visual artist using digital imagery. We're here today to talk to him about his work and the process. Chuck, tell us a little bit about how you do this process of digital imagery, how it came about, and how you create your artwork.
Photoshop has a bazillion tools to use to manipulate a photograph in a bazillion ways. And those tools, and certainly a lot of others too, can be used in unique, original ways to, in my case, remove the photograph from its objective reality and make it something more about abstract values. All my work is of things. They have recognizable objects in them, but that's not really what the work is about. It's about the relationship of light and shadow and color and texture and volume and depth and so forth. It's a view of the rooftops in Prague. It's not important where it is at all, because the rooftops are beautiful things unto themselves. So if you just abstract them and take away their photo-ness a little bit, you get something that's beautiful even upside down, in my opinion. Here, for example, is a picture of a place where we are actually sitting, me at my desk. So how do you change that from photographic objectivity to something more fanciful? Well, one way is to manipulate that image in various ways, like that, by taking that image and putting the manipulated image over it and then adjusting its transparency in various ways. So that, for example, is 100% manipulated, and that is 100% photographic. And there is 50% midway between. Some people might prefer that. It's moderately tampered with. That happens to be what I consider the finished result.
What drew you to creating artwork from digital imagery?
It's not a question of being drawn to it. It's the only option these days. I mean, even the most stubborn photographers now are finally, many of them, giving up chemicals in favor of the digital realm. It's just what is.
Well, it's been fascinating learning about your work. We certainly appreciate you being with us here today. I'm Paul Werlin with Arlington Public News. Thanks for joining us.
How would you like to join a team and make a movie? Write, shoot, edit, and score it in just 48 hours. The 48-hour film project is a wild and sleepless weekend in which you can do exactly that. On Friday, May 2nd, your team gets a character, a prop, a line of dialogue, and a genre, all of which need to be included in your movie. 48 hours later, the movie must be complete. Movies will be shown at the Kendall Square Cinema on May 6th. This year, ACMi will be sending a team to the festival, led by production coordinator Jonathan Barbado. If you're interested in participating in this project, please contact Jonathan at 781-777-1115 or via email at jonathan@acmi.tv.
Explore the beauty of Cyrus Dallon's female personification of victory when the Cyrus Dallon Art Museum holds a gallery talk on April 19th at 2:30. For more information, go to dallon.org and click on Events. Learn about the influential and creative people who called Arlington Heights and Crescent Hill home in the early 20th century when the co-authors of Arlington's Cultural Heights speak at Robbins Library on April 22nd at 7 p.m. The Arlington Belmont Chorale and Arlington Philharmonic Orchestra perform their sponsors concert featuring the work of Mozart, Bizet, and Cherubini on April 27th at 3:30 at the First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church. For more information, go to psarlington.org. Hear tales of heroism and the role local boys played in decisive action during World War I when the Arlington Historical Society presents Arlington's Own Veterans, the Yankee Division in the Great War on April 29th at 7 p.m. at Mount Pleasant Cemetery Chapel. And over at the Regent, see 11 comedy shorts in LOL Laugh Out Loud Film Fest on April 22nd. My Son the Waiter, a Jewish Tragedy, runs April 23rd through May 25th, and a screening of The Carbon Rush, a documentary on the unforeseen costs of carbon credits, on April 29th. For tickets and information on these and other shows, go to regenttheater.com.
Be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Arlington Public News and follow us on Twitter at Arlington Public News. Both links can be found on our website at news.acmi.tv. If you like this segment or any other segment on tonight's broadcast, please watch it again on acmi.tv. Also, be there to catch up with recent blog posts regarding our favorite stories of the week and other events.
And Paul, we would like to recognize Lauren Alejandro, our assistant news producer. Lauren has taken a full-time position as a producer at another studio, so we want to wish her the best as she leaves us here. I know she's not fully leaving. She will continue to help us out, but we want to acknowledge her contribution and thank her.
Lauren has been a fantastic assistant news director. She's been our news director, Sarah Alfaro Franco's right-hand person, and we're going to be sorry to see her go, but she's going on to something full-time, so we wish her the best.
And thank you so much for joining us.
She's surprised. She didn't know this was coming.
No.
Thank you, Lauren. Please join us next time for another edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Michelle Marino. See you next time.